Hello and welcome to the International Daily Roundup by People's Dispatch, where we bring you some of the major news developments from across the world. We begin with the United States, where his multi-billionaire media tycoon Michael Bloomberg ends his campaign for the Democratic Party nomination. The clear consolidation of the party's establishment behind former Vice President Joe Biden becomes more evident by the day. Despite the performance on Super Tuesday, the Bernie Sanders campaign is still surging ahead to the next set of primaries. We spoke about the challenges the Sanders camp faces as the establishment's elite within and outside the party throw their weight behind Biden. We spoke to Eugene Pourier from Breakthrough News. Let's see what he has to say. Eugene, to begin with, the media reports in the immediate aftermath of Super Tuesday have portrayed this as a massive victory for Biden. And one of the reasons, of course, is that he seems to have won at least 10 states. But is that actually the case considering the very complicated nature of the delegate count of the Democratic Party?
Well, I think that's a good point. I mean, when we look at what's happening right now, and I think people to understand who don't know this contest, it's not simply just the raw vote. And if you win the state, you get some sort of other thing. There's a number of delegates who technically determine the nominee at the convention. And so those all have to be parceled out vis-a-vis the various states. So Joe Biden was able to go into the lead because of the 10 states he won. But many of those states, which are smaller states, the delegates are apportioned based on the size and the population of the state, aren't really bringing that much to the table in that regard. And so we don't have the final count from California, which is, at the time we're talking, still coming in, which is a big, big vote prize, as people, might imagine. It's a large state. And it looks like ultimately what will happen is that at this stage in the race, going into next Tuesday and the next couple of races, Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden will probably be, somewhere within shouting distance of each other, probably somewhere between 3 and 20 delegates, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, far away from each other. So there's quite a bit left to play, a number of large states, significant states. So, from the terms of narrative, from the terms of momentum, I mean, Biden winning states like Virginia and North Carolina that are considered swing states, I think it was a big win for him. It rejuvenated his campaign. It was really the result of an unbelievable, quite frankly, coalescing of quote unquote establishment figures who represent more of a status quo politics. So it was good for him in many ways, but I think in terms of the true state of play, as you're speaking to, it's actually still a very close race.
Right. So let's look a bit more at the establishment aspect you were talking about, because I think, especially for people around the world, sometimes the very complicated nature of the party's politics can be a bit hard to decipher. So we have a candidate who's, say, Biden in this case, who's at best can be described as brittle. I mean, he's made a lot of faux pas. His record is riddled with inconsistencies. And there's this whole argument about how his campaign is working basically hard to ensure that he's not exposed. And you have a candidate who's been able to inspire a party, bring an entire new set of demographic groups into the party itself, and generally create a narrative about hope and building a new future. So how is it that the establishment chooses to side with the first candidate?
Well, I think that it's really a commentary on the state of, not to seem euphemistic, but ruling elites in the United States, the wealthy, powerful interests. Maybe a good way to encapsulate that is upon Joe Biden's big Super Tuesday showing here, healthcare stocks, pharmaceutical companies in particular, just surged. So it gives you a sense of the type of interests that are supporting him. One of his main, advisors, Stuart Eisenstadt, is a weapons industry manufacturer. So, I mean, there's a number of individuals who have been coalescing behind Biden. At least 60 billionaires have donated to him, and that will undoubtedly grow as other candidates, Pete Buttigieg, who had a long list of billionaires himself, their bundlers come off the sidelines. And so I say all that just to say that this is not some mythical chimera, which is also something that's being talked about in the U.S. news. This is a big piece of Joe Biden's campaign. Now, there is no establishment. It's really just the working class people who are bringing in this. But it does exist. And I think what it shows is the past 40 years of neoliberal rule, unipolar world dominance that we've seen. I mean, really just the unbridled rule of wealthy and powerful interest over poor and working interests, which we've seen in soaring income inequality, increased precarity in work, stagnating wages going back, quite frankly, beyond the past 40 years, back to 1968, that these individuals do not want to give up any ground at all. They don't want to give an inch to any candidate. I mean, certainly what Bernie Sanders is proposing isn't all that different from many other capitalist countries around the world, things that wouldn't be strange in, Singapore, for instance, which last time I checked, no one is claiming is some socialist paradise. So it's not the policies themselves, but I think it's the fact that what Bernie Sanders represents and the movement behind him represents an insurgency against what the status quo represents in a general sense. And so it doesn't become about the politics just, well, could you have capitalism and national health insurance or free college or whatever it may be? That I don't think that's the level that this is being pitched at. I really think that it's just, well, we've been making a lot of money, we've been tremendously profitable, we haven't had to have any real trade-offs from the point of view of bosses to workers. You look at the $1 trillion transfer of wealth that Trump put in terms of the tax cut, right? First thing he does in 2017. So why would we now? And if we can see to this person, Bernie Sanders, who's being powered by this, very working class, very racially diverse, very young coalition, where will it stop? It's a slippery slope type of argument. And I think that's why they've coalesced around Biden. I don't think he's necessarily even their preferred candidate, which is why there are so many candidates so deep into the race. But I think at the end of the day, the fear of essentially the party establishment being overthrown and it being replaced with something that maybe isn't that radical, but at least is a political unknown and certainly has no sympathy for these same neoliberal interest is a big problem for them. I think it's a big fear. And on a personal level, even from the point of view of the campaign establishments, there's a huge, I lived in Washington, D.C. for 15 years, an unbelievable amount of money that is wrapped up in these campaigns. I mean, you see Michael Bloomberg alone spent $500 million. So, not only do you have this sort of establishment donor class, but you also have the people who do the media buying. Like there's an intermediary, TV stations and the campaigns. You have the people who are working as the consultants on the ads and the digital rollout campaigns and the voter turnout and all of that. And they also have a direct material interest. So you have this coalescence of the sort of actual party apparatus, sort of steel girders combining with the donor class around both a set of ideas and a new potential, political reality on the ground. It's very dangerous establishment.
As the prosecution of the Communist Party of Poland continues, communist and progressive movements around the world observed an International Day of Action in solidarity with them. Marches and demonstrations were organized at Polish embassies and consulates in various countries, including across Europe and elsewhere, in solidarity with the Communist Party or the KPP. The constant persecution of the communist movement in Poland has received international attention as the KPP faces the prospect of a ban. 4 years ago, the leadership of the KPP and its publication, Brzak, were targeted by the Polish bureaucracy and the right-wing government, led by the Conservative Law and Justice Party, or the PIS, and this persecution continues to this day. This is the second such attempt to use the legal machinery against the party. A previous attempt to ban the KPP for propagating what were deemed to be totalitarian ideas was unsuccessful. In the post-socialist Poland, the conservative PIS, along with other right-wing groups, have sought to ban the advocacy of communism and Marxism in the country. This is despite legal and constitutional guarantees of free speech and various limitations put on it by the European Union. In our next story, Amazon has reversed its discriminatory delivery policy towards Palestine after public outcry. It was recently revealed by an Financial Times investigation that Amazon had been offering free delivery services only to illegal Jewish settlements in the occupied Palestinian territories. According to the report, Israelis, including those in the illegal settlements in the West Bank, were offered free delivery on orders above $49. On the other hand, Amazon charged Palestinian customers in the occupied territories of West Bank and East Jerusalem shipping and handling fees upwards of $24. The only way the Palestinians could have availed Amazon's free delivery was if they entered Israel instead of Palestine in their country of address. This revelation is widely decried, especially by the Palestinian Authority, the nominal government of the occupied territories. Multiple ministries of the authority threatened to file various cases in various international fora over this matter. The e-commerce company tried to explain this away as a matter of logistical issues faced by its delivery personnel because of the many checkpoints and physical barriers installed by the Israeli military apparatus in the region. Amazon claimed that this caused hindrances to its delivery system. The company, however, failed to explain how the hindrances somehow did not come up for deliveries to the illegal settlements that also fall within the region, or how the policy changed with the mere changing of the country name on the address. Eventually, the international outcry from customers and threats of lawsuits led to Amazon extending the same delivery services and offers to Palestinians. That's all we have in this episode of the International Daily Roundup. To know more about these stories, visit our website peoplesdispatch.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Thanks for watching.
Cantar que vamos a triunfar, avanza ya.